Now, it's almost 4 years since the Grenfell Tower fire, and earlier this month another tower wrapped in the same combustible cladding went up in flames. Jessica Ewer spoke to one of the residents in East London who says if this had happened in the middle of the night, he doesn't think his family would have made it out alive.
My young children heard me saying, "I can't get out of the building, it's on fire. The stairwell is full of smoke." And so at that point the wife was shouting, "Please get out of the building, the fire is moving upwards." And my children were screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, please get out." Just as we started our descent down, we could hear screaming, a woman, we could hear young children. As we started to approach level 8, which was the source of the fire, things began to get quite challenging. It was really dense, thick. We couldn't breathe properly. Still, our lives are being endangered because 4 years on, cladding is still on this building. Fire doors did not close. Safety vents did not open to let out the poisonous smoke. The lifts were still operating. The building doesn't have a sprinkler system, and actually, believe it or not, as much as this sounds incredible, but the building did not have an audible fire alarm system, and therefore residents were not aware that there was a fire. I welcome the introduction of the fire safety bill. However, I wouldn't say that that was progress given Grenfell happened in 2017. I would say that it's procrastination by the government. Had this been 4 AM in the morning, then absolutely it would be a very different story. And I don't believe I would be speaking to you right now had it been in the early hours of the morning.
Nadeem there talking of his terror of this fire happening in the middle of the night and probably not making it out alive. He's blaming the government for procrastinating. 4 years on from Grenfell, how many near misses do there have to be for the government to sort this out? Bob.
Well, I can understand how Nadeem feels, and actually Rupa and I have both spoken very strongly about the need to do more to protect leaseholders, because we've both got blocks in our constituencies that have been affected by this. I think actually the fire safety bill is a good thing. The government put in $5 billion, but frankly it is not enough. And my big concern is that whilst we should ultimately make sure the developers and the various contractors and others who are responsible for these errors pick up the tab, that will take some time to pursue them. And the government does have a duty to fund those leaseholders in the interim.
OK, but are the government dragging their feet,
Bob? Quickly. I don't believe they've dragged their feet in the terms of the legislation or the very important changes to fire safety. But I have spoken out and indeed voted against the government on 1 or 2 occasions to press the point that we do need more to persuade the Treasury to make sure that leaseholders currently do not pick up the tab, because the work needs to be done, but they're very often in flats which are unmortgageable and unsaleable. So that's where we need to help them, because we can cover the cash flow as the government, which they can't, and give them the sort of peace of mind that I can quite understand that Nadeem and his neighbours want to have.
Rupa?
The government's had to be dragged kicking and screaming for every little bit of crumbs they've put on this table. I think last time I was on this programme we were discussing the same subject, and we're nearly on the 4-year eve of we're on the eve of the 4-year anniversary of Grenfell. Seems progress has been painfully slow, and that particular block, New Providence Wharf, is a private one. I think there's even more sort of red tape when it's a private block, not a housing association one, because they're sort of individual people that have to bid into the fund. I've got a number of mostly housing association blocks, but the private one seems to have the sticking point that it's proving very difficult to unlock this money. And also, it's not just cladding. There are, wood burns and there are timber balconies on this building. So there's a whole load of defects that need fixing. And apparently in that particular case, not only the fire alarms didn't work, but because it's such a high building of 20 stories, the fire brigade's ladders weren't even long enough. The eyewitness accounts are really, really harrowing. It was a luxury block. I think the properties in there cost up to £3 million each. And now, looking at the pictures of the charred remains, the government is dragging its feet. And maybe it's because, there aren't enough of these blocks in the Red Wall or something, that there's a concentration in London. I don't know why they're doing this. It would be quite easy to sort it, maybe even remedial loans.
OK. Bob, just briefly, easy to sort. People like you should be putting more pressure on the Prime Minister and his cabinet colleagues.
Right. I think anyone that's followed my record and that of a number of my other Conservative colleagues would certainly say we've not been slow to put pressure on. We've put a great deal of pressure on. We're saying now that we must urgently make sure that the Building Safety Bill, which is coming along now, includes provision to protect leaseholders, but also we do need, and this is where I continue seeking many meetings with ministers on this, we do need the Treasury to recognise that you could put up a system. The Leasehold Knowledge Partnership has got a good idea
Bob,
for, in effect, a Treasury-backed form of
thank you.
bond that would enable us to cover this.
Thanks very much.